when we moved to St. Louis, we came so that I could begin graduate school at WashU. That was our purpose in coming here. And moved here, the only people we knew were Mike and Michelle, and didn't know anyone else. Knew them just even a little tiny bit. I had lived on the same floor as Michelle at Goshen just for 1 year, so didn't even really know her that well. And so we felt very alone and very isolated here in St. Louis. So I started graduate school. David worked a while at some small jobs and then found a good job at UMSL at the University of Missouri. And that happened about 2 months before I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And it was amazing how it felt like things fell into place for us here. Once I was diagnosed, they said that I had probably had it in my body for at least 6 months to a year, meaning that it hadn't ever been caught in the small town that we came from. We come here to this city where we know no one, but there's excellent medical care. If it had been caught 3 months earlier, we would have been on catastrophic insurance as a student at WashU, but God's timing just happened that David got this job with wonderful insurance. That was a real blessing. And then the support we felt from the congregation. We had come to church here maybe 4 or 5 times before the diagnosis, and immediately there were people at the hospital. Meredith was the interim pastor at that point, came over to pray with us as a family and walk with us through that journey. And it felt like God had really put hands on how our connections came with this church and the people in it at a time when we really didn't know anyone, and people just embraced us very well. And that was amazingly powerful, to feel like you were cared for by people you didn't even know. It was really powerful. And then 6 months later, we were pregnant with Sophia. Felt like a miracle had happened. I didn't even know after the surgery and everything if I would be able to have children. And then so miraculously happened quickly like that. And it had been something we'd been waiting for a long time, and it just happened so well.
Did when we were in Switzerland was to visit a cave where some of the early Anabaptists actually worshipped together because they were hiding from their persecutors, from their fallout, from people who were trying to get at them. And they were forced to be an underground church and were limited to going to the forests or any other kind of hidden places to worship. And this cave, which we made an excursion to, was one of those places. It was historically known as a place, I think it was called the Anabaptist Cave, and so it was a common place for folks to visit. And so it is a cave, kind of a hollowed out area in a hillside, and it was probably at that time quite hidden from outsiders. And so once we got there, just the significance of being somewhere where your forebears had been 450 years ago, it was really profound. I remember just feeling a real sense of connection to that historical fact, and the beauty of the area was striking. It was in Switzerland, which is a beautiful country to begin with. And the group that we were with, we were all Mennonites, and together we had a worship service. Basically one of communion, where we shared the juice and the bread together, and kind of were led by a pastor who was part of our tour. And it's a very strong memory for me of kind of giving me a sense of the importance of my history and the people who came before who had to survive a lot just to worship, and hopefully made me realize the freedoms we have as Christians here in North America to worship very freely. but also a connection to my faith as a Christian, you know, that Christ was there in caves, Christ is there in all sorts of parts of the world. And it doesn't matter exactly the setting, it doesn't have to be a specific building, and it's wherever you meet, where 2 or 3 are gathered, even one, that you can worship God and really grow in your faith by being together and concentrating on our Creator.
In 2004, we had our first child, Sophia, and we had waited for her for a very long time, and so we're very excited to receive her as a blessing. But with that came some unexpected things, and one of those would be lots of crying. She was a pretty colicky baby, and we weren't expecting that. You always hear the stories of, you know, just sweetly sleeping in your arms and all of that. Well, we spent most of our time rocking and holding and jostling and trying to help her be content. And it was very wearing. We were both exhausted and just felt inadequate and unable to do what we were so excited to be doing, parenting. I remember someone saying to me, to have the image of God in my mind rocking me while I rocked the crying baby. And that was a real blessing to be able to visualize God that way.